Now you're going to choose the parameters for the algorithm, and you're going to be training your machine learning algorithm. Perfect. Now let's go into the project. So for me, it's binary classification. Go to assets, and in assets you can find your models here. So for me, it's B class. So I'm going to go inside my model, and you will find your data set. Also, it's helpful to notice here that you have three sections or three tabs. You are currently on select data. There's another one called train and another one called evaluate. Okay, perfect. So you want to use this data set, so you click on it, or you basically select it and then say next. So this is basically loading the data set. Now what we need to do is we need to tell the machine learning algorithm which column you need to predict, or which column the algorithm has to predict. So for that case, you're gonna drop down and you're gonna choose the column. So in our case, this is gonna be this column is underscore tent. So just a quick recap is we want to understand who is buying the tent. So we want to predict this specific parameter, and for that we're going to be passing some input data. So that input data is these feature columns. So by default, all of them are selected. Perfect. Now you can choose from one of these: binary classification, multi-class classification, and regression. Now since the column is underscore tent only has two values, that becomes a classic case for binary classification. This is already selected for you, the validation split. So simply hit next. So now your model is being trained. Now this might take some time depending on the depth of the data set and your connection and so on. So kindly be patient, and you can check back after a few minutes, and if you don't see anything, hit the refresh button. So there you go. It took me a couple of minutes, maybe less than that. So the estimated type was logistic regression. The status is trained and evaluated. The performance is excellent, so that's good. You can also see poor and other kind of comments here. Since we have a 0.9, that makes it excellent. All right, so you have to save this training and evaluation. So go ahead and say save. So this basically will save the model and will save the training for you. Once the model is saved, then you can go about using the model. That is when you test on the model, or you get the inference from the model, or you put the model to use. In other words, you can also say that you're going to push the model to production. All right, there you go. The model is saved. Now this is going to be loading itself. Now we want to actually use the model. So still there are two more steps pending before we actually can use it. The first one is we need to deploy the model first. So go to deployments. So just to keep in mind, you are in projects and binary classification. You're inside the model B class. If you don't see something for a while, you can also use refresh. So there you go. It took some time. So if you don't see anything, hit refresh, or you can also go back to your project and then come back from there. All right, so we are in deployments now, and as you can see that your model is not deployed. So go ahead and say add deployments and give it a name. So I'm gonna call it B class deploy, and let's make this a web service. So basically this is an API using the REST service, and you can call this from any language or any platform that you use. All right, let's say save now. So it says initializing, so give it a second, and there you go. So this is a deploy success. Great, so we're almost there now. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go inside the deployment. So you're gonna click on the B class deploy. So a quick recap is you have created a project, you have associated the machine learning and Spark service, you have created a machine learning model, You have uploaded data, you have chosen the parameters, you have trained your algorithm, you have made the deployment for the trained model, and now you're going to test the model. So go back to deployments here and click on the name B class deploy. For me, it is B class deploy. And here there is something called the test category or test tab. So go to test, and this is where you're going to actually test it. So you have to enter the data: gender, age, marital status, profession, and so on. And you can ask the algorithm to predict customer with this profile will buy a tent or could have purchased a tent. Right. So if you want, you can look at the Excel sheet which you have with you. So go back to Excel sheet. So here you are. So gender is M, age is numbers, marital status single, married, profession is professional, other, retail, and product line, and so on. So you don't have to give all the information. So let's go back to the model here. Now I'm going to say this is going to be a male. I'm going to say age is going to be 50, and let's say this gentleman is married, and let's say he's from retail, and let's say that's all the information I have about this customer. So let's say predict. Now your trained model will tell you what it thinks of this profile. So there you go. So this profile is not bound to buy you a tent. All right, great. So let's make some changes. Let's say male, 27, single. Okay. And let's say this is a professional. All right, there you go. So now let's say predict. Now you see that this profile is almost certainly going to buy a tent or could have bought a tent. Perfect. So you made your first prediction using a binary classifier inside IBM Watson. Hooray. Good going.